So, hey, welcome back, everybody. It's Tony again. This is the She Talks Confidence podcast. Nicole Danielle, how are you?
Thank you so much, Tony. It is an honor to be here with you. And I just want to say before we dive in, thank you for doing the work that you do. Because in a world where oftentimes, not to be like men, male, female, or anything, but a lot of men still raise their voice to put women down. And you've really created a very special space because of your own personal story and journey in life to really give women the ability to use their voice and share, prove that they have something to say and give them a safe space to do that. So thank you for doing this and for having me. I'm so excited to be here and have
And
this
you are so
conversation with
welcome, and I'm so happy to do this. And again, this is you can just blame my daughter, just blame her,
you.
because that's why I'm here. And I'm just all about advocacy and women's empowerment. And I love having you guys on because, and one thing I do want to talk about is you are an advocate for everybody having a story. And I want to just read this briefly. And the reason why I bring that up now is because every woman has a story. Never be afraid to share that, because when you do, it may be a huge gift to somebody else that you never know, right? It could be one person that you never know. So Nicole, just to give you a little background, she's a writer and producer and an actor. She's an author. It's Diamonds Beneath the Darkness is the last book. And you're also working on 8 other books from what we talked about last time? Sheesh. She has a little quote here on her website, and she states that I've always had a burning desire to share great stories with the world. Over the past few years, I've finally realized perhaps the most important stories I could ever share just happen to be my own. And I love that. And I think it rings true with every person, and more specifically with every woman, because every woman that I've had on the show has been incredible and amazing stories. You have a doozy. And it was the little quip you had indicated in us chatting about how you found your voice and how you found that confidence and how that has translated into you having the courage to raise your sons in a more than difficult environment in certain circumstances.
I have spent a lifetime, it feels like, telling other people's stories. And then one day during the pandemic, it felt 4 decades of life and existence just came crashing down on me in the form of a severe panic attack in one moment in time. And all of reflecting on all of these things that have happened over my life, it just felt there's people that need to hear these stories because I need them to know that they're not alone. So since the day I was born, the narrative I was told was I come from a long line of strong, independent women. Here's the backpack, now carry it for everybody. But also you have a voice and what you have to say doesn't matter. So also suffer silently and carry it and just deal with it. And so at 10 years old, I actually won a pageant. I was Miss USA Preteen Illinois, a
Wow,
national photogenic.
congratulations.
Thank you. Actually, Stacey Keeler was my BFF at the pageant.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
She won. I got the third runner up in Miss Photogenic. But anyways, so here I was at 10 years old with this crown on my head and this platform to speak. And my motto was to tell everybody that I cross paths with believe in yourselves and your dreams will come true. Like I used to be the biggest dreamer on earth. But on the flip side of it, at the same time, I also found myself in the courtroom being told to just sit there and don't talk and look pretty and basically shut up because you're a child and you don't have a voice and what you have to say doesn't matter. So just listen to what the adults have to say for your life. It's what is best. So it was a lot at 10 years old to balance this, but I am this person. Here I am, supposed to be this bright light and helping people in the world. But on the flip side, it's no, you're nobody. You have nothing to say. Your voice doesn't matter. So just sit quiet and smile. And so between the ages of 10, 11, 12 was a lot for me during those preteen years, as it is for most girls. But I also went through an innovation personally with my family that I was convinced to legally change my last name to completely unidentify myself with my Italian roots and my biological father side of my family for my air quotes protection in life.
Mhm.
At that age, you can't really, I don't think you're wise enough to see beyond and pull yourself out of the situation, what's really going on. So
Right.
I went with what I was told.
Mm.
Again, you don't have a voice. So I also wasn't aware I could go to people and talk about what was really going on in my life. Now, flash forward with the healing work I'm doing on my journey, I understand more because what I didn't understand at the time was when you're told to hate 50% of who you are, you don't understand at that age. That's you telling you inside like to hate a
Yeah.
part of yourself. I didn't know what self-love ever was in my lifetime because I was just told to hate such a big part of myself for so long.
And kids internalize everything. They don't have developed
Yeah.
prefrontals. They see things in black and white, and if
Yep.
they feel as though that side is shunned
Mhm.
or completely discounted, and then you'll take it personally. That which is one of the horrible things that parents do. They don't understand that kids don't have the same brain functioning that they do, and they will take things literally, and it'll create those negative neural pathways that now, as adults, it becomes an automatic response, and then if you don't like the
Mhm.
automatic response, then you have to go through a lot of therapy and a lot of healing and a lot of
Mhm.
reprogramming.
Yeah, and luckily, thankfully, I am taking that healing journey, like, right now at this point in life, but back then, again, like we said, as kids, like, you don't understand those things, so,
Yeah.
really, when we're looking at my story is my story, by the age of 12, I had completely mastered the art of wearing a pain and smile for the world to see.
Mhm.
So, on the outside, it was like, "Everything's fine," right? "Everything's fine, Nicole's great, this bright light, this smile, this she's good." She to the outside world, it was like, you had the house your parents built and the younger sister in this life, right, in the suburbs, like, it was just but inside, it was I think that's about the time, like, the whole darkness really started to stir, like, the light started to slowly drain and the dark started to creep in, and then it just became a wave of from that point on, just, like, a lot of life happenings. At this point in time on my healing journey, I've come to discover it was decades and decades of trauma, but I
Mhm.
never associated anything I went with trauma.
No.
That's not my story is not worthy of that. That's meant for big stuff. That's meant for like war stories or terrible car accidents or these hugely dramatic things. I never wanted to be the victim.
Minimizing is a byproduct of you not having a voice and
Yeah.
really of you not
Mhm.
taking yourself and your feelings into consideration because of the dissonance that you were living, the outside
Mhm.
and the mask versus the inside.
Mhm.
It almost creates that shell around you to where none of that energy that needs to expel and to be dealt with is it's not happening. You can't confront it and you can't heal from it. So it just keeps making things worse and worse. And that's where the darkness comes in and the depression,
Yep.
right? What was the thing that kind of clicked you out of that or gave you a chance to finally confront that?
Well, you hit the word perfectly on the head for my story, which is mask. I masked it
Mm,
from the world. Nobody saw anything that I was going through. And on top of it, I then turned to theater. And
mm,
I realized that in playing somebody else, like I found myself in a sense. Like I could show up there and the world saw Nicole Danielle, but I was just living in this masked version of that and came to life truly playing somebody else. And so it literally got 3 decades from that point later, I got to, I would say, my awakening, which was also my breaking point. And I
hmm
think you get to a breaking point and people it's a choice to pivot. Either you discover your awakening and you choose to go on this healing journey or you keep spiraling into the darkness and there's but also you need to jump ship as it's happening because people will drag you down with them. For me, it really came one day. So you did mention that my 2 boys have autism.
hmm
If you read the book, there's one dedication and it says, "For Crosby, thank you for helping me find my voice." That was the first thing I wrote, and that is the one thing that stayed true from the first page written. My 7.5-year-old son is still identified as being nonverbal. Most people in the world at 7.5 years old, you're having these extensive conversations with, and I don't have that with him. He does say, "Hi, mama," which is
hmm
amazing. So I know what's in there, which is another
hmm
part of the work I'm doing. I've seen the world try to limit him because he checks the autism box. I fought people and advocated for him daily because people don't think he can't do something just because he doesn't communicate in the way they're used to people communicating. So it has constantly been a fight to show the world that no, he does have a voice. After 4 decades of all this stuff and carrying it and never speaking, and then having a child who you see the world try to limit, even though he's so much more than what they want to convince him that he is, I had this moment where I was just like, I spent my entire life believing I didn't have a voice or what I had to say didn't matter, and then life gifts me doesn't I don't say gives me, I say gifts me
hmm
this beautiful soul in this lifetime, and I'm chosen to be his mama. Like, you can't tell me that's not for some reason, and it's just there was a day that felt like life wrote me a hall pass and just said, "Here, mama, now it's your turn to speak."
hmm
Because you need to speak in order to share these stories to prove to your son that he does have a voice and what he has to say matters. So does every other person out there who believes that they don't have a voice or that it doesn't matter or they don't have a story. I am a huge advocate in life for authentic voices and also a champion for them. for helping you discover your true voice and then using your voice to share it with the world. Because the truth is, every single person does have a story, and your voice is your greatest tool. And you need to use your voice to tell your story because you never know who needs to hear what you have to say. At the core of this, I wanted people to know that they're not alone in their experiences in life, and that while your story and my story will never be the same, we are so much more connected. But that's the truth. Because in these 4 decades of experiences I went through at the lowest of the darkest point in my life, when the person closest to me literally stepped over my body because I became so invisible. And all I secretly wished for inside was for someone to share some sort of real, true piece of their story in an honest, unfiltered, vulnerable way, so that I knew I wasn't alone in what I was going through. I was literally silently suffering through everything. But again, I was wearing a painted smile. So it was always the narrative of Nicole's good. She can handle it all. She's super mom. I don't have to worry about her. And literally inside, it was like I always felt like I was existing in the eye of the storm. But the reality was, I was the storm, and the eye was the hope to break free from all of this. And for me, the change was throwing ego out the door
Mhm.
and finding the courage and strength within me to finally speak in the way that I spoke, in vulnerable way,
Yeah,
because
it's
that's the only way
incredible.
I could have done it, is just to be real and show up as me.
It's incredible. I find it fascinating and just incredible and so true as a parent that sometimes the leverage has to come from somewhere else and has to come from the thing that matters almost as much as you do, maybe even more in
Mhm.
certain times, and that's your son. And
Yeah.
it's almost as though he gave you his spirit gave you the permission
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
finally say, "Oh, hold up. Wait, I do matter. My voice does
Mhm.
matter, and I'm gonna fight like hell for him and for everybody else that has been told that they do not have a voice."
People always say that it's like a parent's job to teach their children, and I do not agree with that when it comes to my kids. They are here to teach everybody else how to live a more beautiful and kinder life. And it is mind blowing when you are able to get out of your own ways and your own beliefs and step back and just look through a new set of eyes or a different
Mhm.
perspective or an open mind and open heart. And you learn so much more about yourself through the process of that too, when you find the beauty and the strength to take that kind of journey in life.
I asked you, last week when we talked, and I
Mhm.
because because you've been through so much,
Yeah.
people always everybody has their own stuff, right, that they go
Mhm.
through. You have had an uphill times an uphill journey, and
Mhm.
the one question I asked you was, "Where does it come from? Where do you find the strength? Where do you find the confidence to keep going?"
It's also funny because I'm a Leo, so you would think I would always have more confidence.
Yeah, but you know how that goes.
No, I know.
I know a lot of Leos that are so full of
Yes,
crap, and
I
it
know.
comes and it's like an ego thing, and you're like,
Right.
"That's not e that's like the opposite of being of
Yes.
having some sense of true self and confidence."
And me and both of my boys are actually Leos.
Oh, no, that's a fun household
So
right
that
there.
lioness in me is rawr, but it's I should be so much more confident. Confidence is honestly, unless I was performing, I was always confident when I was performing. I was just free to be anybody but me.
Because
And
the ego didn't exist.
yeah, no, yeah.
It was just your true self.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
so answering your question, how do I find the confidence? The biggest one is my children. Not just because they have autism, but because I'm the kind of mom that for me it's about breaking the mold,
mhm.
changing the narrative, rewriting a more beautiful story than the one I had to live for them. And that's a huge driving force for me because if I didn't learn, I think that just shows my growth on my healing journey is, like I said, it'd be a lot easier to keep putting the emotional band-aids over the wounds, popping the pills, like numbing it out to not
Yeah,
deal with the emotions and the reality of life. But when you
mhm.
do sit with the true emotions in life, sucks sometimes and you have to take a deep look inwards that you don't want to face sometimes. But then you realize the flow is different of being able to move past it and move on when you are able to just sit in it for a minute. And so for me, it is, I see how nasty the world can be and I see how beautiful the world can be and what version of life do I want it to be for my kids. Now I can't change the world for them, but I can change my life in a certain way that I know it can inspire and empower and help other people. And collectively, we can begin to make bigger changes in the world. So, those two beautiful souls are my entire driving force for everything that I do. But not everybody has children.
Mhm.
But I think what the other flip side of it is my children are also part of them as a reflection of me. So the answer is it's deep within me because when I might look at the mirror of it as them, but it is deep within me, and people really lose sight of themselves. They lose sight of those versions of themselves that they once were more alive and more authentic and real in other versions of themselves in life. But the truth is, those versions still live within us.
Mhm.
And so when you're able to sit and do the work to begin to remove the muck and the crap that you never chose to carry in life, you slowly start to chip that away and you're going to get back to those versions of yourself that are still in there. It's just you lose sight of that and you lose hope sometimes, but they don't go away. If anything, it's like remembering that those inner child or those inner versions of yourself that are in there. And really, that gives you a greater strength than anything.
Realizing that the realities, the bad reality and the good reality, they both exist, and there is a way to get down there. And the problem is that so many people are so hurt and damaged that they
Mhm.
feel as though if they allow themselves to be vulnerable and to open themselves up and to explore those areas that were so traumatized, that they would literally die. In psychology, it's a literal feeling of potential like physical death. It's not, it's like an emotional death. But that's how people feel. And that's why they're so scared when they finally come up against those I call the big red buttons that they have.
Mhm. So you suffer silently because of other people, and that's that moment I got to where I was just like, I'm so tired basically of staying small
Hmm.
just so other people can stay comfortable.
Yeah.
And really that's what it becomes, and that's when I think you start to get your voice back, you get your power back, the light comes a little bit brighter when you realize that you cannot stay small anymore just to keep other people comfortable. That
Yeah.
is such an empowering moment in life.
Yeah, it's true confidence. It's
Yeah.
finally saying, screw it. And you
Mhm.
expand, you're going to get a lot of pushback, and you're going to know who is strong enough to support you and to be in your tribe when you expand.
And it gets to be very lonely, but again, if it starts to become lonely and people pushing away, you know you're doing something right.
And
But even and then more than that, I'll just share one little piece of something from my book. It took me a really long time to figure this out, and I get mad at myself some days that it took me so long, but then I'm also like, it wouldn't be this journey and my life wouldn't be what it is today. There's a story in my book that after college, I was filming this like BET thing, and I was just like a dancer, like on this. They were filming something in Houston. I was in Texas at the time, and I came down and I was always self-conscious. I always wrapped something around my waist to hide my booty I was told wasn't good, even though it was, like, this big, like, it's not what
right
you would
back in
think.
the, as you look back at 20 years ago and you're like,
I look
what
back
the
on my
hell
I
was
wish
I
I had
thinking?
filmed
Yeah,
this.
exactly.
She was something. But my mother, I was standing in the kitchen, and they were acting supportive and whatever. Here I was, like, glowing because I just filmed something. It was amazing. And in the kitchen, she just looked me up and down, and she just said to me, "You're nothing more than a dime a dozen."
Yeesh.
And for decades, that really impacted me because it constantly became this narrative of like your exterior self. You start to lose touch when with the inner you, and so many people are just judging the outer you. And so when I was going through the beginning of writing this book and having these awakening moments, when I think back about what my mother had said to me when I was 20 years old, such an important thing I think people don't realize is they have ability to change the narrative and see things from a different perspective. And so I came to a point where it's, yeah, I'm nothing exterior wise as I was that girl back then, but that woman now has been through a lot more than she has. But I became okay finally with what my mother said to me back then. Because a dime used to be referred to as one of those women who walked in the
Hmm.
bar who had a presence and a light about her.
Hmm.
And if I
Yeah.
was one of every 12, if I really was a dime a dozen, and I was one of those of every 12 people in the world, when there's billions of people in the world, then I guess I'm one of a lot of little bright spots shining light on a very darkened world. And so that's such a big thing. That was such I get like the goosebumps thinking about that because we are told to convince these narratives that these people just want to do damage, and you let the narrative convince you and waste so much of your life because you're not strong enough and you don't have the courage to not believe that about yourself. And so it is such an empowering thing when you do check ego and you do find that strength to be like, no, I have the ability right now in this moment, no matter what anybody has convinced me to believe, to change the story for my life.
Hmm.
But you have to find the strength to just do it and then move forward, continuing on a new path, believing those truths for yourself
Believe.
that you decided, not what someone else told you what to
Right.
believe.
Believe.
behind you.
Believe and
Believe.
have
And
faith and have that
I think
confidence. You have
I think
to believe it.
you have to, and I think I told you this on our talk last week. This is in my book too. I have always believed my entire life is the best gift you could ever on earth give somebody else is letting them know that you believe in them. And I hope anyone listening to this, I know you don't know me, but I'm just going to say I believe in you too. Because sometimes we just need to know that there are people out there in the world who believe in us.
I was gonna ask you for a call to action. That's a total mic drop. I'm done. That's it.
I get
I'm
so
signing out.
passionate about it.
But it
Believe in
be
dreams and all of it. I'm just like, that's me wrapped up in a
yeah.
bow. And I
Because
lost
it
sight of
works
that.
and because it's effective and because
Yep.
you deserve it. As in
Yep.
you who is listening, you
Yep.
deserve it. You deserve
Yep.
it. I don't like yelling at my clients, but they said they come in, they're amazing women and they're so powerful and they have so much to give and they're sitting there
Yeah.
and I'm going, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
You've got to believe that you matter and you deserve all of this stuff."
Yeah.
It's
It's true.
incredible just to wind this up. It's just incredible how our programming as we're young and the way that our neural pathways are developed, that the way the ego is developed and the fact that some of our true selves are suppressed, how that impacts our choices through life,
Mhm.
how that impacts who we hang out with, how it impacts the types of relationships we get into. And you keep thinking, why do I keep making the same stupid mistakes over and over? Why do I keep picking these total loser dudes? Why do I keep getting into situations where it's not supportive at all? And I just keep getting beat down. And then you look back, you're like, hold up a minute. I
Mhm.
may be actually, because I'm not about victimization at all. It's about you have levels of accountability. You're like, wait, perhaps I'm choosing these guys because I have some unresolved stuff that I'm trying to resolve with them. And that's never going to happen. And that never works at all.
Mhm.
And it's not until, like you said, it's not until you finally get to the point where you realize you're in this small bubble and you're like, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going
Well,
to do it. Yeah.
the back of my book, the first thing I wrote at the darkest time of my life, I said, most people are just living to die.
Hmm.
Here I am just dying to live.
Hmm.
And it's that is that moment where it's so many people just do the same thing day after day, living, existing by the expectations and assumptions and pressures everyone else. But no, like here, so many of us are just wanting to live. And that's remembering it's your life and it's changing the narrative. And it's just start by going outside and breathe in that air and feel that sunshine on your face because that's living, that's life.
Amen. Exactly. Don't wait till you're 50. Don't wait till you're
No,
60. That a lot of people do. And then they're like, then they regret a lot of things. And I keep
but
telling my younger clients, I respect them so much that they have the courage to come in and they have the courage to work and they've seen what they've seen and they don't
yep,
like what they see. And I'm like, good for you. You're doing it
yeah.
now. I didn't do it
Hmm.
in my 20s. I didn't even do it in my 30s until later in my late 30s. I just love it. And so thanks, Nicole. I really appreciate it. What a great
Oh,
message. And can you kind of throw out where people can get a hold of you, buy your book and see by the way, your website is awesome. I mean,
are you
whoever designed,
serious?
I'm serious. I think it's awesome.
I did it myself.
Oh, I
It
think
took
that looks
so
fantastic.
long.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
thank you.
So go ahead. So go throw
Me,
all
little
that out there.
self-published author,
Oh
self-published
yeah, me. Yeah,
website
I hear you on
designer.
that
I'm
one.
just doing
Yeah.
it all on my own over here.
Uh-huh.
My book is called Diamonds Beneath the Darkness. I know we don't have time to get into that title. Just read the book. You'll find it out. It's available on Amazon, Barnes& Noble online. My website is www.nicoledanielle.life, or the book's website is www.lifethroughlyrics.com. And my podcast is somewhereroad.com. But socials wise, I'm usually just on Instagram. So you can find me at it's underscore Nicole Danielle.
All right, cool. That's great. And then my stuff is the usual. It's tonydufresne.com, and you won't be able to spell it. So I'll tell you another way to do it. It's theconfidencedoc.com. And I have a masterclass that's ready to rock. I'm just getting the whole sales thing figured out, and I've got some bonuses happening. I'll keep you up to date on what's going on with that. But you can get a hold of me. You can always email me at tony@theconfidencedoc.com as well. Hope things are great, and I'll talk to you next week.